quite some time ago now in a post to give me some players who you thought were either over or underrated. I said you could do past or present, and well, we got a lot of responses. I was not actually expecting this many responses, so thank you very much to everyone who submitted them. Of course, if you want to get involved in these sorts of videos, then make sure to subscribe, as I post these sorts of things on my community post on YouTube, and the best way to see those is to subscribe. But anyways, what I'm going to do is essentially going to react to your opinions on who is over or underrated, and I'm going to decide if I agree or disagree, and we'll see. I've had a brief look at some of them. Some of them are wild, some are actually quite good, so yeah. Now, I'm not going to cop out it. Well, okay, sometimes I might cop out it, but if someone says a player is over or underrated, I'm going to decide, in my opinion, if they're over or underrated. Now, every now and then, if I'm really struggling, I might just say, yeah, you know what, they are probably fairly rated, but I'm going to try to restrict it. I'm going to try and pick it, and of course, it's just my opinion. It's a bit of a fun video, I thought, this one, so yeah, let's just get straight into it, because as I said, we've got quite a few to get through. I'll be a little bit brief on a couple of them for that reason, but we start with Easton. So Easton says underrated Chris Richards and overrated Antoine Semenyo. And I'm not gonna lie, I think we're actually starting off with a bang here. I really do agree with Easton on both of these. Chris Richards for me is definitely underrated. He is a really good, solid Premier League centre-back. He is part of, I think, one of the best back threes in the league and in Europe actually. Him, Maguire and Gay are fantastic as a unit. I feel like Chris Richards doesn't get the praise that Maguire or Gay gets, but he's actually just as important as those guys. He plays almost every single game for Palace as a really solid, good Premier League centre-back, but I don't think anyone sort of acknowledges that. I don't know, maybe it's slightly because he's American. I feel like there's a bit of a bias in that sometimes in the Premier League, but yeah, I tend to agree. Now, overrated Antoine Semenyo, I actually do also kind of agree. I think kind of this season Semenyo has been slightly overrated in the early parts of the season. He has, of course, started the season on fire for Bournemouth. He has been great, and I should also make this abundantly clear throughout this video. If I say someone's overrated, it does not mean I think they are a bad player. I feel like sometimes people think, you know, if I say someone's overrated, it means they're bad. You know, Semenyo is better than Chris Richards. It's just I think Chris Richards doesn't get rated that highly. I think Semenyo at the start of the season, he started off so well, but people maybe took it a little bit too far. Like, I'm hearing some people go, oh, is Semenyo the best player in the Premier League? Is he a world class winger? Is he better than this guy, that guy? He's gonna cost like 100 mil and all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's chill out now. Semenyo is a very good player. He is. And I do think can play for a big six side. But do I ever see Semenyo being the guy on a big six team? I do not know. Personally, I think he's slightly below that level. As I still think he's a great player. I do just think that maybe this season people have gone a little bit overboard because of the great start he has made to the season. I feel like sometimes, you know, people, we need to chill out a little bit with that stuff. But anyways, yeah, I think getting some good ones there from Easton. Next up we have Jay. Jay says Harry Maguire underrated, and I am again 100% in agreement here. The reason he gives is sort of coming back from that big low he had, and then being the go-to clutch man at United. He said, and he actually said this before the Liverpool game, by the way. But I 100% agree. Maguire is underrated, and it's again for that same reason. I don't think people quite realise the low Maguire was at. I mean, this guy was the biggest meme on sort of internet football, if you like. At one point, you couldn't get past it. Absolutely everyone was clowning him, even the government in Africa. I can't remember what country it was, were bringing up his name, getting called all sorts of stuff, stripped of a captaincy, arrested in Greece. It was bad. But he has sort of, I think, quietly just gone under the radar the last couple years, and has completely gone past that, and has actually been one of United's better centre-backs actually for the last couple seasons now. It's not just sort of like a one-season thing. I think each year Maguire's been getting better and better, and he's been really solid. I don't think people actually acknowledge that sort of bounce back he had, that almost redemption arc he has been on. It's really impressive. So yeah, credit to Maguire for sort of turning his career around, and I completely agree here. Right, next up we have CP7, who says Roberto Firmino is the most underrated player in Prem history. Okay, now I'm not going to go like as far as to say he's the most underrated in Prem history, but Firmino over or underrated, I agree. I think Firmino is underrated. I think it's because of the goals, really. He wasn't sort of that goal-scoring striker, so you sort of don't hear his name come up when people talk about some of the best strikers to play in the Premier League. But actually, Firmino, for the role he played, was probably the best we've seen in the Prem. Like, for his role, I don't think we've ever seen a better sort of false nine, deep lying forward than Firmino play in the Premier League. He was sensational at his role, and yeah, I don't think people quite give him that credit for that. Like I said, I think his name sort of doesn't crop up when people are going through some of the best strikers to play in the Prem, and I think that is because of the goals. But I'm not saying he's like a top 10 striker of all time or anything, but like I said, I think he's probably the best at his role we've ever seen in the Premier League, and I think that does need to be acknowledged. Okay, next up we have Sob87, who says Michael Carrick underrated. He's done a couple here, so Michael Carrick over or underrated? You know what, I'll give it to you. I'd say he's underrated slightly, yeah. You sort of listed his accolades there. Yeah, look, he was a regular in that United midfield for many years, and was quite crucial to them. Yeah, I think he's sort of one of those players people just sort of forget about, really. I mean, I probably do it as well. Like, it's a name, again, really sort of, no one mentions his name when they talk about Premier League midfielders. And again, not saying like you should be having him in your all-time 11 or anything, but I think he's better than a couple players who people sort of mention. Romario, underrated, 100%. I am with you there as well. I think Romario, absolutely incredible footballer. But to be honest, I think it's probably a little bit due to FIFA, where like, you know, I don't think he's on the game actually. So I think with these sort of older players, us sort of younger guys, maybe we don't understand. I think a lot of those older guys get lost as the generations go by. And I think Romario's sort of slowly being one of those, but actually was one of the best Brazilians of all time actually. So yeah, I'm with you there. And Pedro, he said, underrated. And you know what, I again tend to agree here. By the way, I will be disagreeing with some of these. It's just these right now are pretty good actually. Pedro, I like it, yeah. A consistent player. You know, Pedro was never the best player on the team, but you're not you're not a bum if you're playing for Barcelona for that long. Which he did. He was starting for Barcelona for many years. A key player. Well, okay, you know, he wasn't like a Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, but he was a good contributor to that Barca squad. Even at Chelsea, he was a solid contributor. What he's been doing at Lazio actually in this latter stage of his career is great too. So I like that shout. Alright, next up we have Luke. So Luke says Sadio Mane is the most underrated player of our generation. Again, I'm not gonna go into like that far, but Mane over or underrated? I will agree. Again, I think Mane is underrated slightly. He is one of the best left wingers in Premier League history. But again, I feel like maybe when people do sort of all-time 11s, they never ever mention his name. And again, I think there are better than him. But we need to give Mane his props because, quite frankly, he was just as important as Salah, in my opinion, in a lot of those seasons. And actually, you know, when it came to big games, clutch moments, a final, Mane was the man. This guy always stepped up for Liverpool. And, you know, like I said, I think he was just as important as Salah in that sort of spell under Klopp when those guys were at their peak. But I do think Salah is, you know, better in terms of he's had that longevity. But yeah, Mane, I'm with you there. Currently underrated Asana Diao and Dan and Doy. Now Asana Diao, I guess so, yes. Asana Diao is a very good, promising talent. I think maybe outside of Italy is underrated, but yeah, sure. Now this is the first one I disagree with. Dan and Doy underrated. Yeah, he is not underrated at all. He's a pretty mid winger. Hasn't really done much at Forest. So, like, what? I don't understand who even rates Ndoye anyway, so. And currently overrated Saka. Yeah, I have to disagree with that one. That's pretty crazy. Saka, if Saka under or overrated, if I had to pick, I actually would lean more towards Saka is underrated. I mean, his argument here is that he's always injured, which is like, well, firstly, not really. He was just injured last season. Before that, he played almost every game for Arsenal. He just had one injury hit season last year. And secondly, you know, sort of says like he doesn't get an insane amount of GA. But I think actually if you watch Saka play, Saka is well and truly the main guy. It is Bukayo Saka's team, Arsenal. So that is why every attack flows through him. He gets 2-3 guys on him because it is his team. He is the and he is the threat, and all the Arsenal attacks go through him. And that is not because he's a bad player, it is because he is their best player. And he is their most dangerous player, and he is fantastic. He genuinely is. As much as a Chelsea fan, I don't want to admit it. Saka is incredible. He is very creative. He is very, very good at creating chances, but he is also really good at scoring as well. He's sort of added that thing to his game. He has really good sort of cutting in on that left foot. I do think he's slightly underrated because he's been out for a whole year, pretty much last season, and has sort of slowly come back to the full fitness. We've sort of maybe forgot how good Bukayo Saka is, but Saka is one of the best wingers in the league. He just is. And all-time overrated Zlatan. I am with you there, though. I think I've spoken a couple times about this with Zlatan. Yeah, look, for me, Zlatan, a scorer of great goals, incredible ability for a striker, very good, but a massive underachiever. And for me, in terms of ability, yeah, sure, he's up there in terms of his generation, but for me, if you're talking overall package, legacy, trophies, what they've achieved in the game, Zlatan is honestly nowhere near Benzema, Suarez, Lewandowski, Samuel Eto'o, David Villa. The list can go on because these guys achieved so much more, in my opinion, than Zlatan. That's just my opinion. But I do think people put him in that conversation when in reality, yes, ability-wise, but if we're being real here, no. Okay. Next up, we have Yuri, and Yuri said overrated Robben. Wow. I'm gonna have to disagree there. Robben for me is not overrated. I would lean more towards him being underrated. Yeah, look, Robben, he has said he's way too one-footed, but that is what made Robben so good, in my opinion, is everyone knew what he was going to do, yet absolutely no one could stop him. That is crazy. And Yuri also said, I think benefited from the era. If he played now, he wouldn't be as good. I don't think that's actually, well, firstly I would say that's a bit harsh and we're talking hypotheticals here, it's one of those things we'll never know, right? But what I will say is I don't think that's true personally, because there are one-footed guys who are thriving in the game right now. Lamine Yamal is very similar to Robben in terms of a right winger who pretty much only uses his left foot, and all the defenders know what he's going to do. He's going to try cut in on that left foot, yet none of them can stop him. And he's doing pretty well. And also Robben, tactically, he played under Pep at Bayern and did very well at Bayern under Pep. So, yeah, for me, Robben is not overrated. He is underrated in my opinion. Underrated Virgil van Dijk. I would say Van Dijk over or underrated. You know what? I would probably lean more towards Van Dijk being underrated. You're probably right. Van Dijk, in terms of ability, is one of the best defenders we've seen. But like Yuri sort of said, I think some people might hear that and be like, what? No, there's no way, and start listing all these guys. I'm like, you can put people above him, that's fine, but Van Dijk is definitely up there. He is one of the most complete centre-backs we've ever seen in the game. But I think, a lot of rival fans and sort of nostalgia merchants would love to pick other guys and completely disregard that, but So Ace says David Raya this season is actually so underrated he will be better than Donnarumma. Okay, interesting. Now, I would say David Raya over or underrated. I will lean more towards underrated here. I'm with you. I think David Raya is one of the best keepers in the Premier League and probably one of the best keepers in the world. I think Raya is actually just really consistent. I think one of the reasons people don't massively rate Raya is because he's just a consistent goalkeeper. Like, he'll have his games here and there where he's sensational, but 9 times out of 10, it's, you know, you're not really speaking about Raya doing anything crazy. But that is actually one of the best things you can do as a keeper, just doing everything right and not making a ton of mistakes. It's so crucial, and Raya does that really well, in my opinion. And yeah, I think sometimes people maybe don't give him huge flowers for that reason, so I'm with you. Okay, next up we have Alexander Isak Ballon d'Or. Interesting name. He has said a severely underrated baller is Edin Dzeko. And I'm with you there, Edin Dzeko, underrated, sure. What an amazing career Edin Dzeko has had. Yeah, as he said there, pulled out for Wolfsburg, City, Fenerbahce, Roma, Inter, Fiorentina. Just, yeah, fantastic, did it in multiple leagues, great longevity, he's still going at 40 years old. Yeah, very good striker, so I agree there. Alright, next up we have Ring King, who says Ndiaye. Now, he hasn't said if he's over or underrated, so I guess that's up to me to decide. Ndiaye, over or underrated, I would say is underrated. Really good player, really good player. He was fantastic for Everton last season and has been good this season. Yeah, he is fantastic, and I do actually think Ndiaye could play for a big six club, and that's sort of one of the reasons I think he's slightly underrated, because some of you might hear that and be like, really, like, you know, if like, I don't know, Liverpool signed Ndiaye this summer, I think some of their fans might be a bit underwhelmed by that, when actually I think Ndiaye is more than capable to contribute at a big six club, because he is fantastic and has been great since joining Everton. Okay, next up we have GF, who says Valverde overrated. Oh, so Fede Valverde over or underrated? I will have to disagree with you here. I think Valverde is underrated. I think with players like Valverde, they actually do get underrated because of the way they play. Like Valverde, I mean, he sort of said it here in the comment, he said, you know, he doesn't run a midfield. Valverde is not the most pleasing guy to watch. He's not Toni Kroos, he's not a Modric, he's not a Pedri, he's not a Xavi, he's not these guys who get the ball, ping the ball around, make nice short passes, elegant dribbling and nice assists and stuff like that. He's not that type of midfielder. But I feel like sometimes people underrate these guys, or people expect these guys to do those things. Like Valverde's role is not that, so I'm not going to judge or downplay how good Valverde is because he can't do those things, because what Valverde can do is great. He is fantastic in terms of being that box-to-box midfielder, his defensive work, his ball carrying ability, his long-range shooting, his utility to be able to play in multiple positions if needed. It's fantastic. His passing is good as well. But like I said, I feel like sometimes people, you know, they won't want to like put Valverde as one of the best midfielders in the world because he's maybe not, you know, he doesn't look like a Vitinha he is great at it, and he is one of the best in the world at that. And I'm not going to judge him or downgrade him because he doesn't do what a Vitinha or a Pedri does, because that's just not his job, and that's not the type of player he is. Okay, next up we have Troop Messiah, who says Isco underrated, Aguero slightly overrated. 100% agree with you there. I would say Isco is underrated. I mean, Isco at Real Madrid for the first couple of years was absolutely unbelievable, people. He was so good. Completely tailed off, but I also do feel like people are not talking about this incredible resurgence he's had at Betis. He has been actually one of the best players in La Liga, genuinely, since he's joined Betis. It is unbelievable, guys. I don't think people give him enough credit for that. And Aguero slightly overrated. I am actually with you there. Aguero, fantastic striker. But what I would say with Aguero is it's almost a little bit like Zlatan. He slightly underwhelmed and underachieved outside of the Premier League, in my opinion. Like, Aguero's Premier League record is fantastic, but I can't really think of too many Aguero moments in the Champions League. I can't really think of too many Aguero moments in an Argentina shirt. Like, that's obviously, those are very tough competitions, but when we're talking about those best of the best, that's where for me Aguero falls down, because like a Benzema has that insane season in the Champions League. I don't remember Aguero even having a bit of a moment in the Champions League. Actually, the only moment I remember was him missing the penalty against Spurs. So yeah, that's just my thing with him. Okay, next up we have HJ, who says Christian Romero underrated. And I am with you there. Christian Romero is, for me, underrated. Like you said, I think people put Van de Ven above him, which is crazy. Romero is, for me, one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. But I think he weirdly sort of gets his reputation as this crazy hothead, who's just a bit of a liability when that's not the case. Like, yes, Romero can be a little bit rash sometimes, but he actually doesn't get that many red cards or anything. And most of the time, he times his challenges well. He doesn't actually make that many errors. And he is very good. He is very good, and like I said, he is one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. Yet, for some reason, a lot of people maybe don't consider him that. Okay, next up we have Sticky Pistols, who says Conrad Lima is so underrated. Yeah, I'll give you that one. Lima, underrated, consistent player for Bayern Munich, real good sort of utility guy, played right back, left back, midfield, and yeah, has been pretty solid for Bayern, sure. Next up we have DJ, who says De Ligt is underrated, and I am 100% with you there. De Ligt for me is underrated, I think, because of how bad United are defensively and the struggles they've had. I think De Ligt sort of gets grouped in with that when people criticise United, and they sort of automatically assume De Ligt is trash as well. In reality, De Ligt has actually been one of the only defenders since he's joined who has been really good, and he has actually been really good at United. De Ligt, he's been, like I said, the only guy really at the back who does well, and actually, almost every goal United concede is an individual error. I actually can't think of many where I'm like, oh, De Ligt has messed up. There's usually Dalot or like Luke Shaw or a goalkeeper or something. I'm never sitting there like, oh, De Ligt has had a howler there. He is actually one of the only guys who performs well. Yet, as I said, I think he does sort of get grouped in with those guys. next up we have Young Slat who says Yaya Toure was underrated. 13-14 season sticks out. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yaya underrated. He was absolutely unbelievable, and I know that season you're referring to. Yeah, Yaya was incredible. One of the most complete midfielders in Premier League history. He could literally do everything. Everything. Now, I'm not with you on the other take. Marcus Rashford overrated, had 6 good months after the 2022 World Cup and didn't do anything else. Yeah, no, I can't do that. I think Rashford is definitely underrated in my opinion. Yeah, look, I'm not gonna deny Rashford has had some bad years, but to say like, oh, he's only had 6 good months after a World Cup, yeah, no, there was a genuine season where Rashford was one of the best players in the Prem. That first year under Ten Hag, he was unbelievable. Before that as well, he's had very good seasons in a United shirt. He has good ability, and I think, because of how bad it sort of got at United, a lot of people have underrated him and thought he was complete trash. Like when he moved to Barca, I know a lot of people sort of thought, what are Barca doing there? Or didn't expect him to do anything because they don't rate him anymore, when actually Rashford is a very good player when you can get him to his best, as we're seeing at Barcelona. Or I will say with Rashford, one of the things with him over the years is he gets underrated when he does bad. Like when Rashford does bad, everyone piles in on him and thinks he's absolutely garbage. But then when he does well, everyone just does a 180 and think, oh, is Rashford better than Mbappe and all of this? But right now I see he's at his underrated stage. Okay, next up we have Sebis who says Manu Konu, Matheus Sula and Mios Vila are all underrated. Now I don't know if you're a Roma fan here, I'm assuming you are, but you know what, I actually would agree. Those 3 have been absolutely superb. The last 6 months actually at Roma, really since Ranieri came in, they've been some of the best players in Serie A, particularly Mios Vila has been an outstanding goalkeeper and is really, really good goalkeeper. I'm surprised no big clubs were linked to him in the summer, to be honest, because he is unreal. Okay, next up, Relaxing says Darwin Núñez was underrated and a top 5 striker in the world. Okay, I'm not even going to acknowledge that. Next up we have Martin. Now Martin says Zlatan. I did actually already cover that. Sorry about that, but we also have Mungobi. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but he says, as much as I hate him, Di Maria is criminally underrated. I would agree, yes. Now I actually did a video on this quite a while ago, so I'm not going to actually speak on this. You can go ahead and watch that. Just type my name in and Di Maria and I'm sure it will come up, but I do agree. Okay, next up we have Phil who says Mark Noble underrated. Yeah, you know what, I'll give you Mark Noble being underrated. He was a very good, solid Premier League midfielder, and yeah, you said never got an England cap. That was pretty crazy because particularly that spell, like I think of so many dead midfielders for England who managed to get caps. So yeah, Noble definitely deserved at least one. I think if you play for a bigger club, than West Ham, maybe would have got a bit more plaudits. Kyle Walker overrated. He's a great, but people put him in all-time 11s, and he's too much of a liability at times to justify that. A bit disappointing with England camps also. I definitely will not agree with that. Kyle Walker for me is not overrated. I think he 100% deserves to be in all-time 11s. is fantastic. What he did at Man City was superb. Even at Spurs, amazing. There was a point where Gallagher was one of the best attacking fullbacks in the league when he first joined City, and then he transitioned into one of the best defensive fullbacks in the league. So yeah, I mean, he is one of the best right backs actually of all time, in my opinion, in the Premier League. So yeah, I don't think that's a crazy shout. Next up we have Gabriel, who says Thomas Müller. Now he hasn't said if he's over or underrated, but I would say Müller is underrated. Sort of that Valverde argument a little bit, where he's not that pleasing on the eye, so maybe people don't rate Müller that much, but he was superb. He was absolutely sensational at Bayern. Next up we have Agustin, who says underrated Marco Reus and Dominic Szoboszlai. Overrated Endrick and Bruno. Marco Reus, I'll give you underrated. I think he is slightly underrated just because he played at Dortmund. I think if it wasn't for injuries, he would have been absolutely superb. Dominic Szoboszlai. Okay, yeah, sure. I think maybe I'd give you a Szoboszlai, but I think he's fairly rated, if I'm being honest. Endrick overrated and Bruno overrated. Nope. Bruno for me is underrated. I think just because he's a bit of an annoying guy. He's a bit of a whiner, a bit of a moaner. A lot of rival fans underrate Bruno. They think he's trash. And, Bruno can have some really bad games, but overall he is very, very good. He is a very good player. And he has pretty much carried United on his back since he has joined the club. So no, he's not overrated. Endrick as well, I don't think is overrated because I don't think that many people actually rate him that much right now. And actually, when Endrick gets on the pitch, he's been pretty good. Like for his age, he's been pretty good. I just think people, think he's bad because he came in for a lot of money. But actually, for his age, he's doing okay. To be honest, he's still extremely young. Okay, next up we have Yesuk, who says Guti is overrated. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I don't really hear anyone talking about Guti, so I don't know about that. He said underrated Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah, you know what, I'll give you that slightly. Kevin De Bruyne is slightly underrated. I think it's more one of those, maybe similar to Van Dijk, where sort of nostalgia merchants, and one of those where when he retires, I think people will start to give him his plaudits a little bit more. Same with Van Dijk. I just think, sort of right now, people are a little bit adverse in terms of putting like current players in all-time 11s. Okay, next up we have Matthew, who says João Moutinho underrated, Odegaard overrated. And you know what? I am with you there. Definitely on the Moutinho one, underrated for sure. What a baller he was. Yeah, it was superb. At Porto, at Monaco, even when he joined Wolves, it was on the older side, but he was fantastic for Wolves. I think, he made a bit of a weird career path going to Monaco, sort of when they spent all that money. I think he could have gone to some big clubs, didn't make that move. I think that made him, slightly underrated. But I'm pretty sure he won the Euros with Portugal, won the league, I believe, with Monaco, and he was a class player. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. Okay, next up we have Joao, who says overrated Declan Rice, Felix and Havertz. Underrated Joao Neves and Diogo Costa. Okay. Overrated Declan Rice. No, would say Rice is underrated again. A little bit of that Valverde argument. Maybe because he's not this technical wizard on the ball. People think Rice is a bad player, and he's just a guy who runs around. That's all he does. No, Rice is one of the best midfielders in the world. He is very, very good. Joao Felix, overrated. I mean, to be fair, someone commented, I don't really know who rates Felix that much, but you know what, I will slightly give it to you, because I still think there are some people who think, on his day, technical ability-wise, Felix is great. Let's be real here. Felix hasn't done anything in his career since he's left Benfica. He has only done well in the Portuguese league for a couple seasons at Benfica. He had a decent-ish season at Atletico. Apart from that, the guy's done absolutely nothing in his career. Overrated Kai Havertz. I think actually this is the reverse. I think Kai Havertz is underrated, and I mean the comments even prove it on this, because again we're getting comments here saying, oh, no one rates Havertz at all, and that is a point with Havertz, because I think Havertz is almost gone overboard now. The hate where people don't rate Havertz at all, which is simply not true, because unlike Felix, Havertz has actually had some good seasons and is actually still a solid, good player. Is Havertz good enough to lead Arsenal to a title as the main starting striker? No. But that doesn't make him a bad player, and that doesn't mean he cannot be a contributor for Arsenal. People seem to be forgetting that Havertz actually, when he led the line for Arsenal, he did pretty well. He got, I think, over 15 Premier League goals that season, and last year he actually started off pretty well and then got an injury for the rest of the season. So yeah, look, as I said, is Havertz good enough to lead Arsenal to a Premier League title? No. But that doesn't make him a bad player. I think a lot of people think he's a bad player, just because, sometimes can be a bit inconsistent with his finishing and maybe started his Arsenal career off bad. Okay, next up we have Nazir, who says overrated Cody Gakpo. I don't know. I feel like Gakpo's fairly rated, if I'm being completely honest there. Underrated Luis Diaz, though. I am with you, though, on that one. For me, Luis Diaz is underrated. I think I sort of realised this when he left Liverpool, because I actually saw a lot of Liverpool fans were happy when they sold Diaz. I was sitting there thinking, what? Why are you happy that you sold Diaz? Diaz was one of their best and most important players last season, and he's gone to Bayern. He's been absolutely fantastic since he's joined. Diaz has his limitations for sure, but Diaz is a really good winger. He really is. And I remember I saw last season a lot of Liverpool fans almost celebrating him leaving. I was thinking, nah, I don't know why you're doing that. And finally we have Mark, who says James Milner underrated, and Foden overrated. Milner 100% underrated with you there, and you've said it there. Again, people assume he just works hard, but he is a baller. Again, it's that Valverde, it's that Rice, it's that Müller argument. They don't look flashy on the eye or anything, and people just think, this guy's just like a runner who just runs around and is good for the dressing room and stuff. Milner was a baller. Milner has great technical ability. You don't get to the level that these guys get to if you're just a guy who runs about and has no tech. He also listed a bunch of other ones here, so we'll round off a video by just rattling through some of these and saying over or underrated. Okay, Ben Mee and Danny Welbeck, Seamus Coleman, Burnley, Ryan Nelson, Peter Crouch and Gary Speed underrated. I would would say out of those, Leno's underrated. I would say Coleman's underrated. I would say Mia's underrated. Danny Welbeck, yeah, maybe slightly. And Gary Speed, I would also say, is underrated. I don't know about the others. And overrated, Trent and Martinez. With you definitely on the Emi Martinez one, and Trent, I am not with you though. But there we go. Those were your over or underrated picks. Let me know if you agree with, well, my opinion on your picks in the comments below. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. Consider subscribing. I'll see you in another video. Peace.